What are you really keeping an eye on over the next 24 hours?
Yeah, the latest development is really with the Vancouver Canucks and their premier forward in JT Miller. They met with the JT Miller camp on Tuesday here in Montreal, and I'm told that the two sides did not make any progress and still remain far apart at this point on the parameters of what a potential contract extension would look like. He's eligible to sign one of those extensions on July 13th. His name has been bandied about on the trade rumor mill for quite a while. The Canucks were fielding interest in Miller as far back as November, December, January, as Jim Rutherford took over, even before their current GM and Patrick Allvin was at the helm. They have a pretty good idea of what the market looks like, I believe. And at this point with Miller, it certainly seems like all arrows, Tyler, are pointing towards a trade. He slides up to number 2 on our trade board at this point. And when you see Miller coming off of a 99-point season, one more year remaining on his contract at just over $5 million, it's a bargain contract for that first year. I'd imagine that the Vancouver Canucks would be eyeing up a pretty significant return. Some of the teams that have been talked about with regards to JT Miller include the New York Rangers, the New Jersey Devils, and the Washington Capitals. The preference, we believe at this point, Tyler, is for JT Miller to play in the U.S., that he'd like to sign a long-term extension with a team in the U.S., being an Ohio native. So we'll see where this goes. No absolute guarantee that JT Miller is moved over the next 24 to 48 hours, but rest assured with this contract status, with the Canucks' interest in creating some salary cap flexibility, and with the idea that more teams could be in the mix at this time of year, that it makes a lot of sense that the Canucks would end up pulling the trigger before they leave Montreal.
And the interesting part with that, you mentioned his cap hit. It's so low. There's really not a contending team that couldn't afford to bring in JT Miller. And when you look at his production and things like that, you kind of go, well, yeah, why wouldn't a ton of contenders, like you kind of listed off there, be calling about the Canucks? And you look at what premier players get as rentals at the deadline, and you think of the return of like a Claude Giroux. Okay, well, getting JT Miller, a better player in his prime, for a full season, like that'll really kickstart the value. I just have a hard time seeing Vancouver not jumping all over that.
Yeah, and look, here's the thing is he's probably not going to place as a one-year rental. Yeah. He's likely coming in on a long-term deal, and the idea being that you'd have a chance to negotiate that right off the hop, maybe even beforehand if the Canucks could find a way to increase their return, if a team could achieve that certainty that would be needed.